You will really enjoy, because these details frequently you will be seeing in the newspapers, and this is kind of an advanced research wherein information was not available earlier to 50s. Subsequently, all the information has come. So everybody is new to the topic, unless he is a space scientist who is doing work either in space or astronomy. They will not be privy for such kind of details. That is why I am really happy to present these details to you. As you are new to the subject, I am also pretty excited to learn all these things before now presenting it to you. Though I am familiar with the terms and all that, but the details, some of the details which are not known to me earlier, this happened to be an opportunity for me also to learn. Well, today we are speaking about space technology. The space technology happened to be an important topic in the prelims as well as in the mains also. Every year, either one or two about questions about space technology are being given on a regular basis. It can be a current happening or any kind of research that had happened during that year or few years ago, or some kind of an advanced thinking, or a fact which was there in earlier times of a great significance. Such kind of questions are coming. That's why this is a topic which is very little, but which has scope of earning correct answers in case of one or two questions. Well, with this, I'm straight away entering into the topic space technology. First of all, what is space? This is $1 million question for anybody. Let us think about space. Space is nothing but, if we really have to term the reference of a universe or cosmos, space is an empty part, is a space. It is empty. Well, why it is empty? Because in that, like earlier in the earlier class, we have discussed about troposphere uh, up to exosphere we have read. Everywhere some kind of an atmospheric characteristic was used to be there. But here in the space, there is no atmosphere. That means there are no particles present. There are no gases present. There are no any kind of a particle is not present in space, but for in a very diluted manner. In a comparison, I can say, if you take 1 meter, 1 cubic meter in atmosphere above the earth, you will find in all layers of atmosphere with a degree of difference. In atmosphere, you will find 27 into 27 added by 25 zeros. Those number of particles are present in 1 cubic meter space area. But in space, you will find maximum you will find 6 protons with helium and hydrogen. That's all. It could be, it may not be present also. That is why space doesn't have a gravity. Space doesn't have a mass. Space cannot influence in any way. So, for a layman, you can always say where from the space starts, where atmosphere layer ends, from there space starts. That means atmosphere, a flying object can fly like an airplane or well-designed object with propellant, with mechanical guidance, everything, it can fly up to the atmosphere because the difference in the wings, above the wings and below the wings, the difference in the atmospheric pressure keeps the airplane fly at a constant speed or with a variation. Since this particular trait is absent in the space, a flight will be standstill there. It cannot fly at all. So that particular area is called a space. When you go from the space to the higher altitudes, what happens is your mass and everything proportionately, exponentially, it gets reduced. That is why you see when you are seeing an astronaut either moving in the space or uh, on any object, no, celestial object, if he is moving there, you will see in the picture or films, no, you will see he is no troubling to keep a foot, and there is a kind of a buoyancy in the air. He is not able to firmly keep a foot on any object like we do on Earth. Well, that is about space. There is one point here you need to remember. The space and atmosphere is divided by one line. This is an imaginary line. This is called Karman line. Karman, Karman line, like McMahon line, which is now separating two boundaries on Earth, different countries. Here, Karman line is the line now which differentiates space from atmosphere. Then, what is space exploration? Exploration is nothing but you are knowing everything about the space and its bodies, its components, and you are exploring all details whether any of it can be of any use to the mankind. To better the socio-economic conditions of the mankind living on the earth, you are exploring the space also, so that you are finding it could be really interesting, or no, you never know. After another 100 years, there might be chances for housing on the moon, housing on other planets. You never know. They are searching for water on the different planets. They are searching for minerals, likewise valuable minerals like gold, silver, such kind of things. They are searching for diamonds. All these things, no, this exploration is helping human improve the resources for the betterment of the humankind on the earth, improve housing. Now housing is becoming it is becoming very congested. So if you go to some other planet, use the soil there, use the conditions there, whether any of the planet is inhabitable for the mankind. These things are found out in exploration. Besides this, you are sending so many satellites into the space. There, these are with different definite objectives. Like some satellites are finding the they are they are now studying the astronomy of different bodies in the cosmos. Second thing, communication satellites, they are helping you in many ways. Like your mobiles, GPS is coming from the satellites, and now the TV programs are coming from satellites. They are directly telecasted. Satellite telecasts to the operations to the earth, but nothing. There is a media, a satellite transponder is redirecting those signals to earth, so that people are getting benefit out of the communication thing. And that is remote sensing, weather study, and then such kind of all world now what is happening, the photography of different mining operations, geological operations. These are all benefits, or no, these are all benefits the mankind is looking while exploring the space. Well, that means all countries are looking for exploring the space for the benefit of the mankind, and not even a single country is against this space research. That means you see how beneficial the program could be. Then I told you the benefits of space exploration, and then let us go to the history. What all happened, when from this happened, and now what is the advancement over years? Let us start. In 15th century, China knows how to build a rocket. A rocket is first, but of course they haven't tried any equipment in that. A rocket initially they use it for warfare. They have an empty space is there. In that they have put the gunpowder and then no, they fired that. It went for some time and no, it destroyed enemy camps. It was the first rocket developed by Chinese. Subsequently, in India, if you know about anybody knows about this rocket, yes, Tipu Sultan in his second Anglo-Mysore wars with British, he used perfect rocket in his warfare. He brought it from Mongolia and China, and then he used in the war. That is the rocket. Of course, it was going in a horizontal, it was not going in a vertical fashion, but it was going with a trajectory, with a path. It was going to a certain distance, and then it was destroying the enemy. Well, that is the first thing we know in India. That is the ancient thing. Subsequently, 1943 can be told a milestone in rocket research. Germany has developed a rocket called V2. This V2 was vertically placed, and no, it was kind of a missile, intercontinental missile going up to few kilometers, and then it was taking a bow and then it was hitting the target. But unfortunately, here the front part of a rocket, which is an angular part of it, a triangular part of it, like an arrow, it will have a guidance system. The guidance system helps the rocket particularly go and touch the target. Unfortunately, the V2 lacked it, it failed. But it has shown to the world that yes, a rocket could be built, a rocket could be used, some device can be built so that we can go, we can reach the heights in the atmosphere. At least, if not space, at least few hundred kilometers, we can go or we can send something. Then, based on that theory, US and USSR have started working vigorously on developing the rocket technology. In 53, 57, USSR has sent the first rocket, first vehicle which can carry something that was called Sputnik. Sputnik was the name. Now, Sputnik, you must have heard very recently also in our lecture, also in our first or second lecture about COVID virus, we talked about Sputnik. You have to remember that that's a vaccine name also they have kept as Sputnik. And earlier in 53, 50, they started 61 also, they say they launched a Sputnik. So Sputnik has got very good national meaning for USSR. That's why for all important aspects they are naming it as Sputnik. Well, this Sputnik was the first. USSR launched a rocket called Sputnik. It was the first launch vehicle. All the rockets are called, subsequently they were called launching vehicles. Rocket can carry a warhead, but whereas a launch vehicle based on the rocket technology, it can carry a satellite. It can be a manned mission, unmanned mission. You can send a satellite to various orbits, various distances you can send, including a manned mission wherein they have sent 3 astronauts, 5 astronauts, 7 astronauts, and subsequently to the latest development of a vehicle space shuttle which can carry people and then keep them for some months, some days in the space or on moon, and it can also carry back the astronauts very safely to the earth. This is called a space shuttle. Up to all these things, right from rocket, Sputnik to present space shuttle, Columbia space shuttle, Everything is dependent on rocket technology, developed rocket technology, and subsequently these are all called satellite launching vehicles. Right. So I told you then USSR immediately. Now 63 is the year wherein USSR has launched a manned mission into the space through Sputnik. The project is called a Vostok. It has sent Yuri Gagarin, a 23-year-old Russian male, was sent to the space for the first time. That is the history in the mankind that men were sent to, human beings were sent to space. He was there for 3 days, he was there for few hours, and then now he came back successfully, back to this. So Yuri Gagarin, if you are coming across the name of Yuri Gagarin, he is the first astronaut who went into the space, sent by Russians in a space vehicle called Vostok. Then, next significant development in vehicle launch was Russia in 64. America, US, following the footsteps of Russia, or rather envied by the success of Russia in space research, they in 64 they have launched a satellite called Syncom 3, which successfully telecasted 64 Tokyo Olympics to the world. It was not a manned one. It was a satellite sent to telecast. That means no, they want to show their prowess in space research. They have sent in retaliation to 61 Vostok. Then in 69 was another significant development. Meanwhile, in 63, while the first male astronaut was Yuri Gagarin, 63, Russia sent a first female astronaut. Her name was Valentina Tereshkova. 63, again Sputnik 3, she was sent to space. Her name was Valentina Tereshkova. These are only points of importance, but now a question will not come since you are reading about space unless you know the names of Yuri Gagarin and Valentina Tereshkova. No, we are not doing justice to them. Then 69 is significant thing happened in the world in space research. 69 America had launched Apollo 11, a space mission with 3 astronauts. It was a lunar module. Lunar module means it was intended to land on moon, lunar, moon. It was intended to land on moon 1969. Apollo 11 was the spaceship. Through that, Neil Armstrong, Edwin Aldrin, and Collins, these 3 went, and Collins was at the maneuvering the vehicle. Armstrong and Edwin Aldrin both have landed on the set foot on the moon. That was the significant step in the world history, in the history of space research, where Neil Armstrong has become first human being to step his foot on the moon. After putting a step, what he said, one step by human beings, a giant leap, one step here in the moon, a giant leap in the history of mankind. Really, it has become a giant leap. After that, many more space missions have happened. We will discuss about significant space missions now happened in the world, more so in the country, in our second lecture. But here, I am only talking about history, how it now happened, how it now graduated into present day status. Recently, Chandrayaan 2, you must be knowing, wherein no rover has the lander was there, but no, it could not land it properly on the surface. during the launching of rover on the surface, there was some glitch happened, and no, it's for a partial success. But success was there. No, we could able to complete the mission with a 95% accuracy. Of course, in a future months, future years, these two will be, the gap will be narrowed down, and India becomes no again a country of the reckoning in the space research. Now, in the whole of India, whole of the world, there are 6 countries which are advanced in space research, or which could able to send manned or unmanned mission to space. They are Germany, France, US, USSR, Japan, China, and India. 7. Apart from India, there are 6. Well, we talked about the history, and then history of Indian space program. Okay, this all happened in the world wherein no India hasn't contributed anything. But what is the Indian history? What we have done? We have, seeing all this success and the research happening all over the country, all over the world. In 61, we have borrowed a satellite named Nike Apache. Is the a rocket we borrowed from US, and then we launched it. This was launched from Tumba Equatorial Launching Station, Thiruvananthapuram, Trivandrum. See, each launching station will have its advantages. That's why they prefer which vehicle is to be launched, which satellite is to be launched from which station. They have reasons. We will come to that a little later. So 61, we borrowed a rocket, and then we launched it from Tumba, but it's only going up to a few 100 kilometers. It was basically a it was basically a it was not for, I will tell you. This is a sounding rocket. This is called a sounding rocket. Sounding is nothing but to study the meteorological conditions in the atmosphere. This is called a sounding rocket, wherein it records what is going to happen, what is the conditions, when what is going to happen. In an empirical way, it sends the information. Talking about 61, pretty long ago. So that was the rocket which we sent. It was a sounding rocket. Whenever I am saying sounding rockets, they are all related to study of the meteorological conditions. Then this gave birth to Rohini rockets, a series of rockets which are called Rohini. Again, these are all sounding rockets. Sounding rockets, name Rohini. There were various stages of development in Rohini. Everything up to a certain extent. And a few years we carried with Rohini. Then our first SLV started. It is satellite launching vehicle, improved technology from Rohini. It is a perfect launching rocket. You can launch any payload. Payload in the sense, the weight you give to be kept in an orbit is called a payload. It can be a satellite, it can be anything. It can be a manned mission, unmanned mission. Well, this is it. So Rohini gave birth to satellite launching vehicle. Then advanced version is Polar satellite launch vehicle. Then advanced version is geostationary satellite vehicle, GSLV, PSLV, GSLV, GSLV-3. These are the advancements. Well. Say you are saying something? No. Right. Then here in the history, you have to see Copernicus was the first person who proposed that the universe is heliocentric. That means around the sun, everything is moving. Earth is moving around the sun. Many planets are also moving around the sun. Center of the universe is Helios, sun. Prior to that, Aristotle proposed Earth is the center, not the sun. But subsequently, that was disproved, and Copernicus is the first person who proposed that it's a cosmos is heliocentric, and then Galileo is the one who developed a telescope and saw looking at the stars and astronomical things. Now he started doing well. This is the history I told you, and then we will go to ISRO. Then, okay, this is the research in India happened. This is the work now happened in all over the world. Then, who monitors, who designs, who monitors all these spacecrafts, space missions, and then who takes a decision? Well, in India, ISRO, Indian Space Research Organization, is the one which takes the entire responsibility of Indian space research, ISRO. Like in America, NASA, National Aeronautics Station, National Aeronautic NASA, National Aeronautics Agency. What is the agency? I will tell you. That's called NASA. And then in America, just like NASA, Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency, that is there. JAXA, that is called, not JAEA. Russian Federal Space Agency, China National Space Administration, German Aerospace Center, Canadian Space Agency. Like our ISRO, in major countries, they have exclusive wings for research in space. ISRO is, the history of ISRO is 1961, all seeing all the development in space research, India, Department of Atomic Energy, under Ministry of Department Atomic Energy, the total atomic energy related research was being carried out by one Mr. Homi J. Bhabha. He is an acclaimed nuclear scientist. He was entrusted with the responsibility of space research also. There was no separate ministry. Space, ISRO was also, it was not called an ISRO. They have started a wing, asked Mr. Bhabha, Dr. Bhabha, to start space research also. In 62, a commission, INCOSPER, Indian National Commission for Space Research, INCOSPER, is started by Bhabha under DAE. He asked Vikram Sarabhai to lead the operations of space research. Up to 69, Indian National Committee for Space Research, up to 69, it was under the same name it held. After that, it was redesigned, renamed as ISRO, Indian Space Research Organization. In 72, Department of Space is separately created. Earlier it was Department of Atomic Energy. Now Department of Space is separated and ISRO is placed under Department of Space in 1972. 72 onwards, it started its operations under Department of Space. But Department of Space, it is directly being operated by the Prime Minister. It will not be given to any minister. All these years, Prime Minister is the head of Department of Space. There will be a Space Research Commission which advises Prime Minister about the operations of ISRO, design policies and everything of ISRO, and know what operations are to be conducted by ISRO for the common good of the mankind. That commission decides. Commission gives guidance to ISRO. ISRO again with its 7 operational centers. ISRO's headquarters is in Bangalore. ISRO has got 7 operational centers for various each independent operations. No, a center is developed, and with that support of these 7 centers, ISRO is functioning. In this, you will have to remember 4 centers clearly. Out of that, one is ISRO centers. You will have to VSSR, that is Vikram Sarabhai Space Research Center, Trivandrum. This is the design center for the launch vehicle. What engines are to be developed? What is the what is the length? Total design of the spacecraft, space vehicle is the responsibility of Vikram Sarabhai Space Research Center, Trivandrum. It has also got a fuel, a liquid propellant center. One center is in Trivandrum, another LPSC, Liquid Propulsion Center, is in Bangalore. 2 liquid propulsion centers are there, which conducts experiments on liquid propellant. What propellant is used to be used in what vehicle, and how much quantity is used. How it is to be prepared. Entire supply, everything now comes from liquid propulsion centers, propellant centers to the launch vehicle. Then one more you will have to remember very clearly. Vikram Sarabhai Space Center is SHAR, otherwise called SHAR. Sriharikota is in AP. Sriharikota is major launching center for any satellite, for any unmanned missions. Sriharikota with its 2 launch pads is the prime launching center to get maximum benefits in India. Second is Tumba Equatorial Launching Station, but it is meant for rockets, but major satellites cannot be launched from Tumba. But Sriharikota is the main center wherein major satellites, all major programs get launched from here. Then the National Remote Sensing Center is in Hyderabad. Here you have one more propellant center in Mahendragiri Hills. But National Remote Sensing Agency or Center, what happens is that here you will store all the data which is collected by the satellites. Everything is sent here. This center, it analyzes and then it gives out the results of the all satellites collected data, either meteorological data or cosmological data. All data is getting here analyzed, and scientists will give out the results of such kind of explorations. A center is in Ahmedabad. It is this center, a center in Ahmedabad. It specific activities like a satellite is to be sent for educational promotion. That means satellite lessons have to be conducted. Such kind of operations will be handled by a center in Ahmedabad. Remaining centers, few centers are there. There is an Hassan, which it controls, it tracks the movement of satellite which you have kept in the orbit. There is a center. 2 centers are there. One is Hassan, other is 2 centers, the tracking centers. Likewise, lesser known centers are there. But anything which you need to remember is a center in Trivandrum, a center in Sriharikota, a center in Hyderabad, a center in Ahmedabad. These are the 4 centers of importance. Then there are 2 things. Again, there are no 7, irrespective of ISRO. Ministry of Space has created 7 independent institutes which will function related aspects to space technology, astronomical studies, all these things. There are 7 independent labs are created. They are directly governed by the Department of Space, not by ISRO. ISRO has only 7 offices, 7 centers, majority of them in Bangalore. Few centers are distributed here and there. With these 7 arms, ISRO functions space research exploratory program. Well, ISRO, again, ISRO, ISRO has two commercial arms. This is a point of importance. One commercial wing is called Antrix, ANTRIX. Second is NSIL, New Space India Limited. What are the roles of Antrix? Antrix is the one. Now, recently, if you have heard, one of our Sriharikota launch has sent 103 small or big satellites into the orbit, different orbits. These 103 do not belong to India. They are various stages of research purpose satellites from many countries. And so these countries sending their satellite, they do not have a satellite launch vehicle. This kind of technology is not there. They have asked India to launch these satellites into their respective orbits for their studies. Well, we take money from them and then we support this activity. Our launch vehicle, when we develop a launch vehicle, and all over world sending their rockets, sending their satellites to our launch vehicle in order to be launched into the orbits. This gives us a lot of money. It means 1/3, 3/4 of the cost of launch vehicle is getting now compensated. So it is becoming a commercial activity for us. Earlier, we were sending our satellites when we don't have a launch vehicle. We were sending our launch vehicles to Kourou, French Guiana Center, or some Russian center. But now we are in a position for the world to support their space research program by sending their space operations, by supporting their space operations through our indigenously developed satellite launching vehicle. So all these operations will be handled by Antrix. Antrix is a commercial arm of ISRO. Anything related to world commercial activity which is to be supported by India, Antrix looks after. Very recently, one more wing is created. This is called New Space India Limited. This is also equally a commercial arm of ISRO, recently created. Both the arms are not private companies. They are wholly owned by Government of India.